Welcome to this episode of Deckology, where I talk to you about decks of cards. And in this episode, I talk about some of the Black Friday drama that happened with the some of the drops. Talk about the original Black Ghost deck and the original Black Tiger deck, and whole background on how I got into collecting and where I'm at with it and some of my thoughts on it. And then I ended up, man, I just can't tell if I'm going to keep this in. I will. I started giving like advice to people that like have a compulsive nature to them where they have to anyway. I want to welcome you to the first episode of Deckology, a video podcast where I talk about decks of cards and things going on in the playing card community. To start things off though, I want to have like a story behind each deck of cards that I have and be able to share kind of like a little bit about what was going on in life during that deck of cards, when I got it, when I opened it, when I'm shuffling it, and just anything that it comes to mind when I shuffle a deck of cards. I figured the first episode I should do one of the very first decks of cards that I got. This goes back all the way to 2005-ish with the bicycle Black Deck Tigers. Back when I was kind of into playing cards and Magic and all that stuff, Ellusionist was like where you go and you buy how to do magic tricks, and they were like the first people I was aware of that did some like fancy playing cards. They had like, to kind of give you context of like what it was like back then, before there was the social media, there were forums. And so Ellusionists had forums where people would post like performance videos and sleights that they were working on, or their playing card collection, things like that. And this time period is when Dan and Dave were just kind of starting to pop off, I feel like, with their DVD, The System. And so I was aware of Cardistry, but I wasn't like totally into it because it was really hard to do. But back in the Ellusionist days, like you would post videos into a forum and then just talk about cards. So I did that quite a bit. I ended up meeting a friend that visited me from New Jersey. His name's Joe. I have no idea where he's at nowadays, but he came like in 2010 maybe, or something. Like I talked to him for about 5 years online, like all through high school. And he came and visited me, stayed with me, and we just jammed out. And that was like 13 years ago probably. Anyways, quick story on the Ellusionist forums. So this deck of cards was one of the first decks of cards that I became aware of when I got back online to Ellusionist, because that's what, after I was like kind of getting back into things a couple of years ago, which was at a bowling alley during like a bowling league. There was a crappy deck of cards that was just kind of out for poker, and like it was, and when I say it was like a bad deck, it was dropped on a bowling alley floor for years. So I picked that deck up, and then I started just kind of like messing with it. And then that's what kind of one thing led to another. I got on Ellusionist, and then I saw that this deck was for sale. This deck used to not be for sale. This deck used to be exclusively given to people that like won contest from Ellusionist. So this is the version 2 that came out, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is like they just sell this now? It was like so prestigious back then. It was like when Jerry's Nuggets cards were like also like getting really popular too, because you would see them in some of the Dan and Dave Cardistry videos. They use Tally Hose quite a bit, I feel like, as well. But anyways, I was really surprised when I got back online to buy a deck of cards. I started off with this and another deck from Theory 11. Theory 11 had just like kind of launched as I was kind of getting out of Magic. So I got like 2 decks, and I didn't really use them that much longer, because then like with decks of cards that have black borders and fronts, they get pretty torn up pretty quick, especially when you're learning stuff and dropping them all the time. So I have a lot of cards. I'm a collector of I kind of like try any deck one time and then I'll see if I kind of want to go for it. But I don't know if it's like this for you or not, but whenever I like get a deck of cards, and so when somebody's like, why do you need so many? First off, you don't need many cards. But if you choose to live the life of many cards, here's one reason why I have many decks of cards. So one, I get tired of staring at the same deck over and over. When I'm learning a new move, sometimes there's certain moves that look cooler with a certain type of deck. So like any kind of spinning move, I feel like looks really good with orbit cards. And then there's like FONTAINE cards, where if you can do like stuff like that. It's also a FONTAINE poster or uncut sheet I got behind me from one of their Christmas specials. Anyways, that's for a whole other day. One reason I have a lot of cards is you get tired of looking at the same thing over and over. The second reason is sometimes certain cards are good for different kinds of things. They age differently. This is where I'm about to become a real enthusiast. So I didn't know about all the other types of paper until I started getting different types of decks. And then you start realizing, oh, this kind of finish is better for whatever. Like, it's all preference in my opinion, but some of the facts though. So this is a deck that was printed in Taiwan. This is the exotic deck V1. I made a whole YouTube video about it. I'm a big fan of shiny things and also the feel of these cards. They just feel different. And that is because cards that were printed in Taiwan just have like this different finish. What also happens with those cards is they tend to like clunk up a little bit, which is actually still pretty valuable if you do a lot of like packet cuts and different things like that. If you do cardistry, if you do sleight of hand stuff, not good. I assume you want pretty slippery cards if you do sleight of hand. Which was how I got into cards anyway. I got into cards in general. It wasn't because of magic or anything. It was because of a movie called Shade, and there was like some cool sleight of hand stuff happening. And then a movie called Rounders. I saw that in junior high, early high school, and just got like really into sleight of hand stuff. Now I don't even know I can just barely do a double lift, but like I see some people, there's a guy, listen to him on a podcast, E.S. Andrews. I'll put that in the description. So anyways, really good sleight of hand person. There's other good ones, but that was just one at the top of mine. I just listened to him on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, on a podcast that I was actually on that kind of helped inspire me to do this podcast. It was the Dealing Seconds podcast. I was with my buddies Danny and Chris, and I realized, Nate was on this one too. He is with XX. But I was on these guys' podcast a couple of times now, and I caught myself just doing what I'm doing here, and I could just keep talking about cards forever. And I was like, okay, I just need my own podcast. After like I got done, I was like, did I talk too much? But like, like when you do something, you're like, did I sound like an idiot? Whatever. So naturally, I've got my own podcast that I'm kicking off solo, because I found out through doing those podcasts that I can just kind of talk about cards for a hot minute. Then I've also tried to explain what like FONTAINE and the hype around FONTAINE, the drama around FONTAINE. I've tried to explain that kind of stuff to my wife, and it is met with proper reaction of like, if you aren't watching this, I just made a blank face. That was like, so people get this worked up about that. It was that kind of a face, maybe. But it is fun regardless of if they do limited drops or not. I still think it's fun to watch the community react and also have a conversation about it too. Usually every drop that happens with a major brand, like kind of a hype brand or something, there's usually discussion going on around it. And so I always enjoy participating in those discussions, or sometimes I just enjoy lurking through the comments and just watching it all unfold. But I wanted to be able to take a lot of the conversations I was having already in the DMs about the Orbit red tuck case, the red sticker tuck case, and the Dan and Dave Anyone collab, that release that just happened on Black Friday. I was talking a lot about that. To fill you in on that, if you aren't familiar with it, chances are if you're listening to a playing card podcast, you probably heard about this, but to fill you in if you're not, and if you are one of the few people that follow my Cardistry Tyler account on Instagram that isn't into playing cards, first off, thanks. Second, thanks for making it this far in a podcast episode where I've just really geeked out about playing cards. But for those of you that don't know, I'm not going to don't recap the whole story here. Let's just, so what happened on Black Friday was there was like remember when I said there was this really rare deck that only you could get if you won it or you got it from some giveaway or something like that. So it was really rare. Therefore, the market value of it was really high. So Anyone did a collab. Anyone is, when I say anyone, I mean this is a playing card company. And for those of you that are like, duh, it's Anyone, just bear with me. I'm trying to explain to people that don't know. Anyone did a collab with Dan and Dave. Dan and Dave are these people, some of the OGs in the Cardistry community. Well, so they did a collab and they did a special one where they had a deck that was like a shiny deck version. It was foiled. Well, I guess, so they sold it at some point. I don't know the full backstory, but they sold it at some point and it sold out and there was a very limited amount made, like 265. Well, on eBay just a couple weeks ago, it was like November 9th or 8th or something. I saw one sell for $300. So then Anyone on Black Friday was like, hey, by the way, on Black Friday, we're releasing a limited amount of this deck. Again, I don't even know if they released it in the beginning. So I haven't fact checked this one yet, but I'm sure somebody, if in the comments, can you like straighten out the facts for me? So to basically say there was this deck, not a lot of people had it. And then all of a sudden somebody paid $300 for it. And then they're like, oh, you can buy it now for $65. And I say that's reasonable. I'm air quoting if you're listening. That's reasonable because it sold for $300. So all of a sudden it sells for $65. You're like, okay, I'm going to buy one or two or five. Then it's like, if I were that person then that had spent hundreds of dollars on a collector item that like doesn't exist apparently or something is really rare, I'd be like, dang. Based on what I saw, a lot of people got, not a lot, but some people, and like a lot is very subjective, because there was also a lot of people that didn't say anything about it. So bear with me on that. I hate when there's like big clumps that like don't categorize everybody into it. Anyway, so that kind of like ruffled some feathers. People were like, oh, dude, I thought this was rare. I thought this was sold out. Now you're selling some and like whatever. I was going to buy some. And then by the time I went to eBay and back to see if I was like, am I seeing this right? It had sold out while I had it in my shopping cart. So, which is fine. I don't want to deal with resale and shipping, and I wouldn't have been able to appreciate it as much as somebody. So I'm just hoping somebody that really needed it or wanted it got it, because to me, I would have bought over $100 worth of cards and not really cared about like the background and like the collector piece, because there's so many Dan and Dave decks at this point. If you want to collect them all, so I wasn't too upset about it. I do have another story about cold feet when purchasing, which if I remember, and I got time, I'll talk about it. If not, remind me some episode. Is around the mystery decks. So that happened on Black Friday. And then what had happened was everybody kind of spent their money on Black Friday. And then it was just a day or two or three later, FONTAINE is like, hey, this shiny deck that we've been teasing, you can pre-order a red version of it now. And so this is obviously not it, but they have been doing this for a while, and the pre-orders, this is a pre-order deck. And so the most recent thing is they have, if you buy a brick, you get one mystery ultra rare deck. And that like immediately put a lot of red flags up literally no pun intended with the red deck, but everybody was like, whoa, not everybody. Like I said, I'm going to reel it back. Some people probably don't care. Some people might have spent all the money on it and it didn't even affect their wallet. Anyway, but like there was I didn't see, let's just say I didn't see any comments about saying, yeah, this is a great idea. It was quite the opposite. So, and it's been like that. But I don't think Fontaine would still do it though if people stopped buying it. And that's kind of where I've been at this whole time. Like, if you don't want it, don't buy it. And like nobody is also like, I guess when people are like, I have to, like, don't make me buy something. Like, nobody's making you buy anything. I get if you are a collector and you want to have a complete collection, it's a pain, but it's also like part of the journey of collecting. It's like if it were easy, everybody would do it. Like part of the, I feel like this is my opinion on collecting. I feel like the value of something rare in 500 of something isn't necessarily rare to me. I feel like if there's 5 to 10 of something, that's rare in my opinion. So then if there is only 5 to 6 of something, but like it's highly sought after, that to me, when you finally get the opportunity to get it, means so much more, and it's more fun to look at. If you are a collector, you probably, like I love just when you finish a collection of some sort, you're like, dang, that's pretty sweet. And you just stare at it and you're like, that's that. That's about it. So, I've got like the whole Fontaine Nickelodeon set over there. At first I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then now I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like it's there. So that's kind of like that with a lot of stuff. So anyways, we don't need to get into the philosophy of collecting. The only thing I am kind of like, where I'm like, that kind of sucks, is where it is, there's 4 different ones. And so for you to like complete the collection or get those 4 ultra rare ones, you're probably gonna have to spend some money. And I guess that's just part of the journey of collecting playing cards. I think it's like a reality of collecting playing cards is you just have companies that will do this. And that is just kind of part of it. Orbit, which I feel like is one of the most beloved playing cardistry companies out there. And Chris, the owner of it, when they're at CardCon in November, they released 50 of these Tally-Ho collab decks, and 50 of them had a red seal on it, like this one, like this. Okay, and then there's the blue. The blue one is for us common folk. The other one, the one of 50 out there, or I guess I think there's 50. I don't know. Immediately became a collector's item. And so it was kind of the back and forth between everybody again. And it was like, man, we're really getting worked up about paper right now. Like when you watch it from the outside looking in, and you aren't as emotionally connected to the Orbit brand as maybe somebody would be if they had been collecting for years. I'm just kind of like, whoa, okay. I feel like my advice to you is if you find yourself getting upset at a playing card brand because of something that they did, I would take a brief step back and appreciate the gratitude of that being your problem. That's, if like playing cards, something that is supposed to be fun and collector's worthy or something, and one of your, like, I get no problem is like everybody's problems or whatever, but if paper is something that you can essentially buy to solve the problem, can be solved via money, that's a pretty solid problem and pretty cool thing to have to worry about. Because it would definitely suck, and I don't think you would really care if all of a sudden you weren't able to get one of 50 if you just found out you had cancer or some bullshit. Like it becomes a little bit more meaningless then. So I feel like the community as a whole needs like a subtle reminder of like, hey, they're just playing cards. Have fun with the collection process. Have fun with the learning process, and have fun with the paper. Be an enthusiast about it. You don't have to let anything, but you especially don't have to let paper make or break a day. But I will say, though, I will, like, on your side, like, where I can't sympathize with you is I haven't been a part of the community long enough to see that, like, but then again, this ghost deck is the exact same thing. Granted, the V1 still sells for quite a bit, but like I did have that initial like, what? That's like silly that's happening. And then I let it go. And so you don't have to buy anything cards. If you have like OCD or something and you do like feel the compulsion to need to get it, I could see how that could really make you mad. So in that case, I would talk to a therapist about what is causing that response. If you have to, not like, oh, I have to have that, but like if you have to have something, I would look inward and I'd figure out what is causing me to have this. Like my life's not complete without this. Like I said, I'm not trying to like make light of it. I do know like OCD is a thing and compulsions are a thing. And I know a lot of people in this industry certainly have compulsive buying habits. So, takes one to know one. Let me know what you guys want to hear. I'll pick and choose. I'll cherry pick the comments I like, and I'll talk about something in the next episode. I plan on doing these weekly. Be sure to check out the links in the description for whatever I end up typing down there. That's it. Let me make sure real fast I wrote a list, because if I don't write a list, yep. You know what was not on the list? Telling people to go to therapy that get really mad about playing cards. That was not on my list of things to talk about. But you know what? Here we are. Episode 1 down. I will talk to you guys in the comments or throughout the week.